I'm a covenant man. Living in the riches of my Lord and King, I'm a covenant man. Committed to Him in everything I do, believe He'll come again. And I know one thing I'm gonna do till then is learn to live in the blessing of Abraham. The Lord told me how He wants me to be, to abide in Him and His word in me. Anything I ask Him,
Hello, my name is Ryan Weeter, and today I'm going to be teaching just a little bit about freedom from fear. This is a very important subject to grab a hold of because fear is one of the primary weapons that the devil uses against us as believers. He will draw this circle around you and say, don't cross this circle or something bad will happen to you. And so many believers, they buy into it. They don't because they're scared. And it's not a good way to live. You can't live your life afraid. And when you get a hold of this freedom from fear, the chains are broken off of you. You're set free. You can live your free life. There are no limits on you. Now, when I was little, maybe 4 or 5, I was scared of the dark. And I'm sure that many people, just like me when they were little, were scared of the dark. And I told my parents, I said, Mom, Dad, I'm scared of the dark. And they told me, well, you know what to do. Pray, read the Bible, stand on the scripture. And I was like, all right. So I found 2 Timothy 1:7. And 2 Timothy 1:7 says, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And I found that scripture and I read it. And I remember I had this little nightlight in my room. And I would leave that on while I was getting ready. And I would read the scripture. And I would read that and I would think about it. And I would take a stand on it. And I would turn that nightlight off in faith. And after about a year of that, every night, standing on that scripture, reading the scripture, I just wasn't scared of the dark anymore. And I was set free. And it's such a simple and effective example of what to do when you're scared, when you're fearful of something. It's such a great example. And I'll get a little in-depth as to why that worked and why that's a good example. In 1 John 4, starting in verse 18, it says, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear, because fear hath torment. He that feareth is not made perfect in love. And that pretty much sums it up real quick. In one verse, we see perfect love casts out all fear. Simple, straightforward, to the point. It's very hard to misunderstand that. It really is. And so, the one little issue in this verse is, what is perfect love? Well, it just so happens, earlier in that chapter, in verse 8, it says, he that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. That's perfect love. God is love. You put those two together, God is love. Perfect love casts out all fear. You put it together, God casts out all fear. And that's why my story about when I was scared of the dark is such a good example, because that's what I did. I focused on God. What you see, what you hear, what you say, all of that gets down deep inside of you, and it comes out, and it consumes you. When you get focused on God, when you get focused on love, on perfect love, it casts out all fear. Fear just runs away. It can't stand. It can't stand in the midst of it. It can't stand before it. And that's what you gotta do. When you start getting fearful, you get in the Word, you start focusing on God, you start worshiping Him. That's all you gotta do. And it's so simple, but so many Christians live their life in fear. And in just 3 verses, you can see so simply how easy and how important it is to just break free from fear. Fear isn't from God. God is the exact opposite of fear. God is love. Perfect love casts out all fear. I don't know how opposite you can get. And it's so important when we allow fear into our lives, we're allowing something straight from the devil into our lives. And it corrupts our lives. And it damages our lives. And we just can't do that. And so I want to leave you today with just very, very simple things. 2 Timothy 1:7. For God hasn't given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. If you're scared of something and you don't know what to do, what scripture to stand on, where to go, that's a good place to start. And there are tons and tons of verses throughout the Bible that talk about why we have no reason to fear and how great God is and how weak fear is compared to him. That's just something I want to leave you with. It's just, if you're scared of something, stand on a scripture, focus on God, get into it, get that inside of you, and you will be set free from fear.